Hi friends, welcome to our last video for Unit 2. We're going to talk about sleep cycles, sleep disorders, and why we dream. Okay, so let's look at our learning targets. You can see that even though this is a really interesting topic, we don't really spend a lot of time on it, which makes a lot of people sad because this is one of their favorite units. But we're going to be talking about all aspects of sleep and dreaming. So we're going to talk about the different sleep stages in the sleep cycle. We're going to talk about theories behind sleep and why we dream. And then we'll look at some symptoms of sleep disorders and how we treat them. Okay, so let's look at our rhythm of sleep. So you have this really cool thing called a circadian rhythm, and that occurs on a 24-hour cycle, and it includes sleep and wakefulness. So this is basically like your internal body clock, and it lets you know like when it's time to be awake and when it's time to be asleep. And this is how it does that. So it's controlled by the hypothalamus, specifically in the SCN, right? It's a specific nucleus in the brain. You can see it in this picture right here. But basically, it receives input from the eyes. So the eyes, when we're walking around and we see that it's light outside, that it's daylight, well, that information gets sent and it lets the body know like, hey, we need to be awake right now because it's daylight. And then when it's nighttime outside, that information gets sent as well to let the body know that it's, at nighttime, it's time to go to sleep. So basically, that light, those signals tell the pineal gland when to release melatonin or when to stop releasing melatonin. So when there's light signals and our body knows that it's daylight, we don't need to produce melatonin because it's not time to go to sleep. But when we see that darkness, then that sends messages to the pineal gland and we start increasing that production of melatonin, which causes us to feel sleepiness and then therefore go to sleep. So also with our circadian rhythm, this can be adjusted or changed. So think about if you travel to a place that has a different time zone. So let's say we're traveling to England and that's 6 hours ahead. That's going to mess up your circadian rhythm a little bit, and that's where you experience jet lag because your body is on a different rhythm than the time zone of the new area that you're in. So it takes a couple days for your body to adjust. Then you're able to adjust to that new time zone, but then you face the same thing when you come back to your original time zone. Your body needs a couple days to adjust to get back onto the original cycle that you were on before. So let's look at some different stages of sleep. So this is our quiet sleep. So we're just sleeping, we're just resting, no dreaming, and none of that is happening here. So NREM stands for non-rapid eye movement. And so anytime you see an N for non-rapid eye movement, you know that we're not dreaming here. I've always called it REM sleep, REM, but some people just spell out the letters. But basically, we have stage 1. So this is just drifting to sleep. You might experience different hallucinations, sensations. This is where if you're falling asleep and your body like twitches or you kind of like jerk a little bit, that happens in this stage. This is a mix of alpha and theta waves that are active in your brain. And so this is kind of the stage, like if you fall asleep in class for a very short amount of time, you're drifting to sleep, you're in stage 1. Stage 2, you're more relaxed and actually clearly asleep now. And what makes this stage different is because we have these things called sleep spindles. And so if someone was monitoring your brain, we would know you're in stage 2 when these short bursts of brain activity happen, even though you're asleep. Stage 3, this is our deepest sleep. This is where it's the hardest to wake you up. And this only occurs for the first few sleep cycles when you're sleeping. So this isn't going to happen the longer that you sleep. But we know that we're in stage 3 because we see large delta waves. So make sure you know which waves go with which stages of sleep. So here we're going to go through these first before we ever enter into any REM sleep. But this is non-rapid eye movement. We're not dreaming here. Now let's move into what happens when we actually enter REM sleep. So we'll go through stages 1 through 3 first, and then it's like a cycle. We start to move back to stage 1. But before that, before we get back to the top, we're going to enter our REM sleep or a paradoxal sleep. And this is really interesting because this is where we have beta waves, and it seems like your brain is awake even though you are completely asleep. And so that's why it's called paradoxal sleep, because your brain is almost as active as it is when you're awake, but you're paralyzed. You're not moving, right? Because we're not able to act out our dreams. It's probably a good thing, right? Especially if you're like chasing someone or trying to beat someone up. It's good that we're not acting those out. So you're actually paralyzed from the neck down in order to protect yourself from not acting out your dreams. But like I said before, it stands for rapid eye movements. And that's because when you're dreaming and your eyes are closed, your eyes are actually moving back and forth under your eyelids, hence the name rapid eye movement. But this is where our dreams happen, and a lot of other things in the body happen here as well. So we want to get as much REM sleep at night as possible because it influences so many other factors in our body. So if you're not getting enough sleep and you're not spending enough time in this stage, you're actually hurting your body in many different ways. So let's look at a visual of sleep through the night. We see that we're awake, and then we go into stage 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're going to go back up, and we have our first bit of REM sleep after we go through stages 1, 2, and 3 first. We have our first little bit of REM sleep, and then we go back, 2, 3, go back up, REM sleep. Oh, look, we have a little bit. We might wake up or go into stage 1 up here, and then we're going to continue to go through our stages. You see that stage 3 is shorter here by the time we hit our 5th sleep cycle, and then it's non-existent after we get into those later sleep cycles, and we have REM sleep more often. And we're closer into stage 1 or potentially waking up after that REM sleep. So that's why sometimes you have a dream and then you wake up, because that stage of wakefulness follows right after REM sleep. So like I said, the deeper you go, stage 3, that's our deepest sleep, that shortens to where it's then completely goes away. And we spend more time in REM sleep, which allows a lot of things to happen in your body. Okay, how much sleep do we need? Well, we have a chart here off to the right that tells you by age how much sleep that you need. So on average, adults need a little bit more sleep than teenagers and children, but still we want to get, from 8 to 10 hours of sleep. That's good, especially unhindered sleep. So not like sleep and then waking up and then sleep and then waking up. We spend about 1/3 of our life sleeping, and I think that freaks people out, and they're like, I can't be productive. I spend so much time sleeping. But you need that amount of time to sleep in order for you to be your best self. So that's where people get it confused. They're like, I don't have time to sleep. But you're actually not allowing your body to recover or grow or do the things that it needs to do because you're depriving it of sleep. And, sometimes genetics can play a role in this as well. Sometimes people, can function on less sleep than others, but we still need a large amount of sleep to protect ourselves. Okay, sleep deprivation. So if you don't get enough sleep, there's no way for you to make that up later, right? Or you can't get 15 hours of sleep and then store that somewhere for a night that you only get 5 hours of sleep. It's not like that. You don't get to make it up. If you, sleep for 5 hours, then you didn't get your full sleep, and you're not able to get sleep from a storage part of your body. So we want to make sure that we are getting the sleep that we need. So let's look at all the different effects of sleep deprivation, because I don't think people understand just how important sleep is and how much it can hurt your body if you don't sleep. So we've got some of the stuff that we see on a daily basis. So if you don't get enough sleep, sometimes we're irritable. A lot of us can identify with that. Severe yawning, we can't stop yawning. Impaired immune system. So this is why if you're not getting enough sleep, people say you're more likely to get sick, because you're not allowing your immune system to rest and recover. And so therefore it's having to work even harder. So let's look at some of the other stuff that maybe we don't think about when we think about sleep deprivation, but memory lapse. So this is why sometimes if you don't sleep before a test, you're not able to remember stuff that you actually do know the answer to. We can have aches, we can have tremors, symptoms similar to ADHD. You just can't focus. Hallucinations, higher risk of heart disease, higher risk of diabetes, risk of obesity. This is my favorite one because people are like, I don't want to be obese, but I also don't let my body sleep. Well, that's putting strain on your body, and your body is actually holding on to the fat in your body, and more of the stress hormone is produced. And so you're like backing on the pounds, right? And so sometimes also with the growth hormone is produced during REM sleep as well. And so if you're not getting enough REM sleep, you might be not getting as much of the growth hormone that you need. So that's suppressing some of your growth. So a lot of things come from sleep deprivation. And then we know if we stay up for 5+ days, that's a really good way to die. So I think that should tell you how important sleep is. So let's look specifically in the US. So 45% of Americans, so almost half, report poor or insufficient sleep as affecting their daily activities at least once in the last 7 days. So there's probably one day in the last week where you didn't get enough sleep and that affected your activities. Like maybe you weren't as focused. Maybe, you tried to work out and your muscles weren't as strong. Maybe you got sick. 35% of Americans report that although they get adequate amounts of sleep, their sleep quality is poor or only fair. So maybe you slept for 7 hours, but you woke up, every 2 hours, or you woke up every hour. So like you got enough, but it was like poor quality, or you were tossing and turning. Reports match previous data to show that women are more likely to experience insomnia, whereas men are more likely to snore or experience sleep apnea. And we'll talk about both of those. And then we see correlations. So one is not causing the other, but there is a relationship between poor sleep quality and lower annual income. So that's something to think about as well. And let's start thinking about like, why in America do people not get enough sleep, or do they feel like their sleep is only poor or adequate? Okay, should we nap? This is such an important question because I am a big napper. I love to nap. Some of us like to nap, some of us don't. Some of us think naps are better than sleep. Not true. It's a really good way to mess up your body. So let's talk about this. Biologically speaking, we seem to have a major period of sleep at night, right? So you sleep through the night, and a smaller portion of sleep in the afternoon, which begins about 12 hours after the middle of the main portion of sleep. So you sleep for 8 hours at night, right? Right in the middle of that, take whatever time that is and add 12. That's when you're going to want to nap. So if Paul went to sleep from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. last night, 10 p.m. to 8 a.m., and 3 a.m. would be the middle of this period, when does Paul feel the natural urge to nap? Well, you add 12 hours to 3 a.m., that gives you 3 p.m. He wants to take a nap at 3, even though he got a full night's sleep. So a 45-minute cat nap, so a fast nap, improves alertness for up to 6 hours. Naps that usually last longer than that signal you have a sleep deficiency. All right, so if you go home and nap for 2-3 hours, you're not getting enough sleep at night. And so that should let you know, hey, I need to sleep more at night. Usually you want to nap just within those first 2 sleep stages. You don't want to nap for an hour, because by the time you hit an hour, that's when you're in your deepest sleep. So that's why people who take hour naps and they wake up, they're like, I'm more tired than I was before. Well, yeah, because you woke yourself up in your deepest sleep stage, right? We want to wake ourselves up when we're in like stage 1 or 2. It's much easier for us to wake up that way. So sleep theory. So basically, why do we sleep? So some of these are evolutionary, like this first one. Sleeping in the darkness when predators loom kept our ancestors out of harm's way. So basically, while predators are out moving around, we slept, which protected us. Sleep recuperates. This helps restore and repair brain tissue or body tissue. It's your time for your body to repair itself. Sleep helps remembering. So sleep restores and rebuilds our fading memories. So if you're trying to remember something, you need your sleep. Sleep is helpful. So this is what cracks me up when people like stay up all night, like studying or whatever. Good luck remembering that because you didn't allow your body to go through REM sleep. And so you weren't able to like store those memories. And then sleep and growth. So during sleep, our pituitary gland releases the growth hormone. So this is why, especially when you're growing up, you really need a lot of sleep. As opposed to adults, we don't have that growth hormone produced as much because we're not really growing, but this is really specific for children. We want them to get enough sleep so they can get enough of their growth hormone so they can develop properly. Okay, let's look at different sleep disorders. So let's talk about insomnia first. So this is difficulty falling or staying asleep. So someone with insomnia might stay up for longer periods of time, might stay up through all through the night. And we've got some complications of insomnia here, some stuff that can come from insomnia or maybe even potentially cause insomnia. And then narcolepsy is overpowering urge to fall asleep that may occur while talking or standing up, like randomly, right? So you fall asleep when, just randomly, we don't know when it happens. So this is different than someone who goes to bed and falls asleep, right? This could be like you're standing up, boom, you fell asleep. Think about how dangerous that could be, especially if you're like driving or something like that. They're going to experience sleep attacks that usually last like 5 or less minutes. This means, lapsing directly into REM sleep sometimes. So let's talk about night terrors. So this is a sudden arousal from sleep and intense fear accompanied by physiological reactions. So screaming, wailing, moving their arms and legs. This is usually going to occur within the first sleep cycle, not stage, first sleep cycle in that stage 3, in that deep sleep. It seems to be related to some fear that the child has, but it's not the same thing as a nightmare. And if the child is not awakened, usually they won't remember anything in the morning. And it's encouraged not to wake the child during a night terror because that can be really confusing when the child wakes up crying, screaming, intense heart rate, right? So you kind of just want the kid to, let it go through, like let it pass, and then they won't remember it in the morning. But this is really, really hard for parents because think about like your young child, like screaming and crying and seeming so terrified. You want to do something about it. Okay, let's look at some more. So sleep apnea, this is failure to breathe when asleep. So that could be a problem, right? You might wake up hundreds of times during the night so you can start breathing again. But a lot of times, like they don't remember like waking up in the night. So treatments include weight loss. Yeah, we see this in a lot of like overweight individuals or a CPAP machine. And that is what you see in the picture off to the right. You see a man wearing an application like over his nose, which is attached to a tube. And it's going to help regulate and allow them to like breathe during the night so they're not waking up and having to breathe again. Okay, sleepwalking. So blank stares, move about in a slow, automatic manner, might try to do certain things like eat, dress, go to the bathroom, go outside, just like random things, but you're clearly asleep. What's that? Okay, this is going to occur in stage 3 as well. It's during our deepest sleep. And we see this again in children, like we saw night terrors, and it usually gets less and less as you become an adult because adults get less of that stage 3 sleep than children do. We also have REM behavior disorder. And so this is where your muscles are not paralyzed. This is where your muscles are not paralyzed in your REM sleep, which allows a person to act out their dreams. So that can get real bad real fast, right? So think about some of your like violent, intense, vivid dreams. You being able to act them out is terrifying. So that's also a disorder that we look at. We're going to see this more often in middle-aged to elderly men, sometimes linked with Parkinson's disease. So a lot of times there's other factors at play. Okay, let's talk about dreams. So this is always really, really interesting to people. People like to figure out like why we dream. Well, guess what? There's a bunch of different theories on why we dream. So we usually have a story. It's like unfolding mental imagery. So a lot of times our dreams have some degree of likeness to daily activities. So you're going to see people or things that you recognize, but a lot of times they tend to be like bizarre and unrealistic. You know, like why are you jumping on the trampoline at grandma's house, which is located inside Creekview, while there's a cow in the hallway? Like they're usually bizarre and unusual. Common dream themes. Have you ever dreamt about flying, forgetting to put clothes on, being frozen or otherwise unable to move, run, or get away, or your body moving very, very slowly when you're trying to run away? You or someone you love dies, being attacked or being pursued, falling, school, teachers, studying, being smothered. If you've dreamed about some of these before, they're all common dream themes. So don't like freak out if you've dreamed some of these things before. They're actually pretty common. And then let's think about like, have you ever had a reoccurring dream? So that same dream like pops up. So we've got a couple theories on why this happens, like why we dream and why certain things pop up and why we dream, you know, some of those different themes. So we have wish fulfillment. Oh, here's Freud. You know, it's going to be a little out there. He suggests that dreams provide a safety valve to discharge unconscious wants and desires. So things that you would like never say out loud that you really want and you desire. He's saying that dreams allow those desires to kind of be voiced or for you to experience them instead of in real life. So you have the manifest content. This is one that you're going to need to know. This is the actual storyline of the dream. So this is whatever happened, right? The tiger in the water with a hula hoop, like that's the manifest content. It's what actually happened in the dream. However, we have the latent content, which is the underlying meaning of the dream. So maybe, you know, you dream about a gun and then the gun actually means penis, right? So that's, the gun would be the manifest content. The sexual part of that would be the latent content. Freud is all into like sexual ideas. So just get ready when we're talking about Freud. Another theory is just information processing. So dreams may help sift or sort or fix the experiences into our memory. So this one helps explain like why you might dream about something that happened that day, or someone might be in your dream that you talked to them that day or you were thinking about them that day. It's saying that dreams allow information to be processed and allows like different activities and things to be stored in our memories. Let's look at another one, physiological function. So this one's a little interesting, but they think that dreams provide a sleeping brain with periodic like stimulation. So like random activity in the brain, those are your dreams. And the purpose of that would be to develop and preserve neural pathways. So this kind of helps with child development here. They would think that neural networks of a newborn are fast developing, so they need more sleep. And so when they, since newborns need more sleep, they spend more time in REM sleep, which means that they're having more of these brain periodic stimulations. So therefore, they're dreaming and they're helping with development. We have the activation synthesis theory. So this suggests that in sleep, the brain engages in a lot of random neural activity. So the dreams make sense of this random activity, even if the brain doesn't like the randomness. Dreams are the brain's interpretation of its own activity. So part of your brain might be active, and so the dream is just making sense of whatever part of the brain is active at that time. Let's look at the last one, cognitive development. So some researchers argue that we dream as part of our brain maturation. That's a fun word that we're going to come back to in the development unit. And cognitive development, so your ability to process, think. They think dreams help with our cognitive development. So basically, even though we're not 100% sure on which dream theory is correct, we've got 5, but regardless of that, everyone knows that we need our REM sleep. So when we are sleep deprived and then we are allowed to sleep again, we show an increase in REM sleep because you didn't get enough the first time. So this tendency is called REM rebound, right? So think about, okay, first go around, you didn't get enough. So the next time your body's going to spend more time in REM sleep to almost try to make up for that REM sleep that it lost. We know it doesn't do that fully, but it tries. But that's called our REM rebound, where we just spend more time in REM sleep after being sleep deprived. Okay, so that's all the stuff that we've got on sleep and dreams. Hopefully we can have some discussions about this, maybe read an article on why Americans today are struggling with their sleep. But let me know if you have any questions. I'll be here to answer them. But I hope you enjoyed this unit. Get ready for that test.